Okay, good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to this regularly scheduled City Council meeting. Today is May 20th, 2025. It's 7:30 p.m., and I will call this meeting to order. We're going to begin by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to remain standing for a moment as Pastor Stephen Traxel from Grace Apostolic Church provides us with our words of inspiration. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor Traxel.
If you'd like to join me, I will be saying a prayer. Lord Jesus, we're so thankful today for your goodness and mercy. We're so thankful for this day that you've given to us. Lord, I pray just today as we get started with this meeting that you'd give us wisdom and direction for all that we think and do. I pray, Lord, for our council members. I pray for our mayor. I ask you to give them wisdom and discretion as they make choices for this wonderful city. I pray for our first responders that you would guard them and protect them as they hazard their lives to make sure that we have peace when we lay our heads down sleep at night. Lord, I'm asking for unity among our city. I thank you for such a wonderful city that you've given to us. I pray, Lord, that you put your hands on our city and guide us and help us, because we know that you are the true sense and you're the true root of peace and hope that we have to look forward to. We thank you for all that you're doing and continue to do among us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Traxel. Michelle, may we have a roll call?
Councilmember Anderson?
Here.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Here.
Mayor Milan?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Present.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Here.
Thank you. We are all here this evening, except our city manager, who is not here this evening. But we have Nick, so that's just as good. May we have someone make a motion to approve our agenda?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda for May 20th, 2025.
Support. Thank you. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Thank you. We've approved our agenda, and we will entertain public comment for items on the agenda. We will ask that if you come to the podium, please state your name and your address. We will allot you 3 minutes. During this time, it is for you to make a comment. We will not be responding back and forth with responses to questions or answers. So if you have those, we just ask that you stick around and approach someone after the meeting, and we will be happy to address any concerns that require a response at that time. Would anyone like to come forward for public comment for items on the agenda?
I apologize, I didn't see the agenda, however. My name is Kathy Schwartz. I live at 406 Charlevoix in Clawson, and I'm responding to an invitation by Mr. Binkowski to give my opinion about the library, 6 days. I'm a longtime supporter of the library. I brought my children here when they were young to participate in events, as well as to check out puzzles, puppets, books, and movies. I've also brought my grandchildren here, and I especially enjoyed the kits that were offered during COVID. I also use the library. I have attended yoga demonstrations, B's in the D, Clawson senior presentations, as well as checking out books. I use the audiobooks and the ebooks. I also support the Giving Tree at Christmas time, and I'm a member of the Friends of the Library. I did a little research to see if we were actually comparing apples with apples on the 6th day regarding other libraries that were mentioned. I found that Madison Heights has a population of 28,626, and it's approximately 7 square miles. Royal Oak population is 57,060 and is 11.79 square miles. Troy's population is 83,000 and 33.5 square miles. So those cities don't compare to Clawson in size or population. I remember when our library was open 6 days a week. I also remember when the library was reduced to 5 days a week. The money was no longer available to support 6 days. So the citizens of Clawson voted a millage to keep the library open. I think the schedule that we have now currently makes sense. On Fridays during the school year, there's a lot of football games, basketball games, plays, soccer games, whatever. So there's a lot of things which would constitute the library not needing to be open on Fridays. Also on Saturdays during the summer, a lot of families go away for the weekends or on vacation. So the Saturday, again, it's nice to have a weekend off. If we need to go to the library during those days that we're off, we're invited to other city libraries in the area and very welcome there. What I don't think a lot of people are aware of is this $80,000 surplus is not coming from city budget, but the library's rainy day fund, which has been set aside, I'm sure, over many years. And this is in case there's an emergency or state or federal funding is cut. As we can see lately, there's a lot of things going on, so there's no security of any financial. And not only library, but schools, health, everything. The library is also going to have to hire more full-time and part-time people because the full and part-time employees that they have now are maxed out at their maximum hours. The full-time employees also receive health benefits and vacation time. They're going to need to have a cleaner come in the additional day. There's going to be more use for utilities, heat in the winter, electricity in the summer for air conditioning, and lights. Not to mention, there'll probably be additional wear and tear on the library and its things that we use. I do not support reopening the library for an additional day at the expense of the library's rainy day fund. I feel that the sixth day is a want, not a need. In addition, our director already puts in way more than 8 hours a day, and I'm fairly sure that if we were open 6 days, she would be there on the sixth day too. Mr. Benkowski, our country seems to be more and more angry and divisive each day. I ask you not to bring this to our city council. I've been to several city council meetings, and I have witnessed your disrespect to other council members and have read your Facebook postings by you as a city council representative, bullying your fellow members.
Call to order.
You represent the city and all residents.
We've got it. Thank you. Well, I was calling time. Thanks for keeping us honest. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else with items on the agenda this evening? Okay, thank you. We'll move past public comment and move to proclamations and presentations, and we do not have any this evening, so we will move past that to item number 8, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. That would consist of item number 8, which is minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, and a list of bills in the amount of $1,012,467.28.
So move.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Benkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Thank you. We've approved our consent agenda as written, and we'll move on to item number 9A, which is, first item is consideration of the first reading of an ordinance to amend the Clawson Code of Ordinances to permit and provide standards for short-term rentals.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article 10, Section 2.2, Section 34-3.1, and Section 4.52 to permit and provide standards for short-term rentals.
Support.
Thank you. Nick?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. On August 7th, 2024, the City Council and Planning Commission held a joint meeting to discuss how the City of Clawson should govern short-term rentals, known as STRs. During that meeting, the City Council asked the Planning Commission to provide language that indicates where STRs would be permitted to operate. After further discussion, the Planning Commission determined that the B3 General Business District, BRD2 Business Renewal District, and I1 Limited Industrial would permit STRs as permitted uses. These districts were selected as they currently permit the use of hotels and motels, which the Planning Commission determined to be a similar use as a short-term rental. The draft ordinance, as recommended by the Planning Commission, was previously presented to City Council in November. At the time, City Council requested the Planning Commission to revise several standards, which is now presented to you. Additionally, the Planning Commission also recommended that the short-term rental ordinance, this is the general short-term rental ordinance, not the zoning ordinance, be amended to establish an annual cap of 10 licenses per year, and that the general ordinance be amended to require annual interior inspections of these units after a certain period of 3 to 5 years. There are currently 12 STRs operating in Clawson. Of these currently operating, one would be conforming to the proposed ordinance amendment, while the other STRs would become non-conforming. Staff and the city attorney are present to discuss any questions.
Thank you. I have one question. I'll start. The annual inspection after 3 to 5 years, what determines 3, 4, or 5 years?
And I think I might have miswrote that there. The conversation with the planning commission, they wanted to have some semblance of an interior inspection, weren't sure that an annual inspection would be necessary, but wanted to see some type of recurring inspection of the interior of the units. And the discussion was every 3 years or every 5 years, and they were kind of leaving it open to interpretation, but one of their desires was to see interior inspections of short-term rentals.
But whatever it is, it would be the same inspection for all people, not a random 3 years, perhaps, maybe
Correct.
5 years?
So if you have a short-term rental certificate, the interior of your unit would be inspected. And so that's just to make sure everything in the home is built to code.
So do we need to define that period here?
I think that would be a discussion that would be had at the ordinance review committee, depending on how the city council acts on the ordinance as presented tonight. Because their, again, desire was to approve the zoning ordinance as presented and then to make amendments to the existing short-term rental ordinance with the recommendations that they provided.
Mr. Minkowski?
Question for our city attorney. If you'll remember back when we had our joint meeting with the planning commission on this topic, there's a gentleman came in, a couple of gentlemen. Well, one stuck out in my mind. He bought his neighbor's house. He said his neighbor was a bad neighbor to have, and he turned the neighbor's house into an Airbnb. Now he rents it out. He's right next door. He's there to supervise his, what's going on at the house. He provides them all sorts of information about Clawson, restaurants they can walk to, and so forth. This proposed amendment would essentially put him out of business, and his Airbnb would be non-conforming, correct?
His Airbnb would be non-conforming. I'm not sure they would put him out of business. We don't like using the term grandfather, but that is the term. It would be grandfathered in as far as current use, non-conforming. Upon sale, however, the use can no longer continue.
Well, I don't see any reason to throw out the good apples when we're trying to get rid of a couple bad apples, so I will be voting against this.
I'm somewhat inclined to agree. I feel like this is written not to manage and coordinate short-term rentals. It's written to prohibit them. It's prohibiting them from in the residential areas, right? Because that's where short-term rentals are. I understand that there's been a problem or two with some short-term rentals in the city, but I use Airbnb when my kids and I go to an Airbnb once a year to meet each other up. Lots of people use them. It's like punishing the whole class because one kid's bad, and this is such an onerous. It's written so to prevent short-term rentals. It's not written to manage and coordinate and collaboratively work with them in the city. So I'll be voting no as well.
What else?
Well, I've seen Airbnbs also, and they're usually of a significant size on a significant property. I contend that the vast majority of the homes in Clawson are inappropriate for an Airbnb or a short-term rental. So at this point, I'll be supporting it.
So, I don't like limiting, I like limiting the number. We should have, I don't think this is an issue that for our community will run rampant. But at the same time, we need to be contemplative about who already has property for being used as a Airbnb, VRBO, whatever, short-term rental. I think they have a right to use their property as they deem is appropriate, and they're also abiding by the guidelines that they're using through these I consider to be very reputable sources. They're very rigorous in making sure that the standards of which their clients, the attendees for these homes, they have to meet a certain standard or they're not going to be part of their program. So I think that we already have standards that are already established. I think this is a little bit of redundancy when it comes to, at least on the inspection side. But the other side of that is that I would like to see expansion to just not be in the areas where there should hotels go. I would like to see that encompassed also into the city center and to the CMD surrounding areas. So what that number ends up being when you incorporate those, I don't know at this point. But I certainly don't think we need to, I'm not looking at capping it at 50, right? I don't think we'd ever get to that point. I think right now, the market is showing that this has been about 10 units now for how long? About 5-6 years now from we first started this?
There's been a very slow growth. I believe when we had the joint meeting in August, there were 11. And so, there's been one additional in the last several months.
Yeah, I love this town, don't get me wrong, but we're not a vacation spot. All right, so we're not South Haven, right? So we're not running into that situation where the actual residents don't have a place to go. So I would like to at least see it be, if we can amend it, and maybe find the right number as we discuss this. All right, right now we've got 10. Maybe we cap it to double and include those that are in those districts that they've already specified and include city center and CMD, 2? Is that what that is?
BRD2 is the other district.
The business, yeah, I'm saying in downtown. Right now, this doesn't include downtown, right? And then, say like on Jefferson, right? So at some point in time, that's been included as a business renewal area, right? Because yes, there are residents there, but if we want to try and turn those properties over, this may be the better way of doing it, allowing Airbnbs and VRBOs. But I'm not necessarily going to say all of those houses, but I certainly want to have that incorporated into a number that says that people in the community have a right to say, yes, I want to have this opportunity to rent my home for however long as I want, because that's their right. But at the same time, make sure that, hey, maybe there are certain areas within town that maybe this can help further develop what we're looking at for our downtown. So, and if those are available, perhaps it'll relieve the pressure within our single-family homes where people may look at that as an opportunity for a better or short-term rental. So I don't want to throw this out. Right, we've been talking about it for too long, and I kind of already spoke my mind as far as like you might be disappointed, Planning Commission, on what I had to say, but at the same time, I don't want to diminish your good work in trying to get something that's workable for everybody. But I think there's certain things that we need to fix.
Nick?
So I can kind of have a good sense of where the council's going right now. If there is a desire to see language to allow it in the residential districts, what other municipalities have done is you have a limit per block or per requirement, so there can't be more than 2 or more than 1 within 1,000 feet of another one. So there's zoning mechanisms we can implement so they're not all concentrated in one area and kind of break them out so there's not 3 or 4 on one block, but it's separated out enough. And so if that's
I'm thinking as far as for, right, R2 and R1, yes. But I'd say if in the CMD2, where we have residences that are part of what we're trying to accomplish at some point in time, perhaps not in those locations.
Would you mind explaining R2, R1, and CMD? Because there are
Sorry.
people sitting here going, I have no idea what he's talking about.
A decade of planning will do that to you.
Yes, it will.
So we have residential single-family zones. We have R1, which is an area that's over by where Shalom School used to be. And then, for the most part, the rest of the city is R2. So those are, again, single-family housing units, right?
Correct.
Okay, so on top of that, we have other zones that we have already established for potential future use for business, for other opportunities, whether it's a house that's there now, which could potentially become a business and still remain a house, or it could be sold, torn down, and become something else later on. Is that about square as far as, okay. So, and then at the same time, we have in our city center district, we have residences that are above some of our businesses. So what I envision is that in those opportunities above those businesses, and I don't know if everybody else has had this opportunity, I have on a couple occasions been able to stay at a short-term rental above a coffee shop in a small downtown area. I mean, they're brilliant, right? And so the fact that I would like to see that incorporated in ours as well. And at the same time, for those streets that may be somewhat limited to future sale because it's earmarked as a CMD2, right? That this may be another opportunity for them to use that as a short-term rental opportunity. But if we do the number per block or whatever, that these need to be excluded from that and be part of, maybe the whole street is, because it's close enough to downtown and it builds that residential buffer that we're kind of looking at.
So there are so many levels of concern on this, and I think we've been talking about this for years, right? Literally years. And originally, I think the first council that addressed this was like, why do we have to have them? And I believe we were given legal advice that you need them because they're going to be mandated.
Yes.
But there are communities that still don't have them, that still are saying, we're not going to welcome them to our community. And so it goes both ways. So in the time that we have had them, when we were at 3 to 5, somewhere around there, we were getting concerns from residents who lived next door, behind, across the street from, people who were renting out their properties to people who come and go over the matter of a weekend and perhaps weren't good neighbors to them for their short stays. And this is something we can't control, right? You can never control who the renter is. So if you live next to, across from, behind, and you have a bad experience, that's something you endure and don't get back. So I think we've tasked planning with this a couple of times back and forth to find a measure that will kind of protect individual homeowners, which we all are in some way, right? Protect our neighborhoods, and yet still allow people to do that thing that they should be able to do, which is kind of what they want to with their own property that they own. So I agree with some of what you're saying, but I really want to be protective of neighbors. I've lived with a not optimal neighbor nearby, and it makes your life unhappy every day. You know, you can't control other people and what they do. So we need whatever we can have, and people here know what I'm talking about. You need to have measures that ensure the integrity of our neighbors and allow homeowners that actually are in their properties trying to enjoy their everyday life with their family the ability to do so without interference. So I guess we've yet to come up with that answer.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I may, I think we could be pretty rigorous when it comes to the number within the R2 and R1 area, right? So we have standards that we can look at from other communities. And certainly at some point in time, we could revisit that if it does become problematic. I don't think it will. But, if we're saying, no short-term rental within 1,000 feet and another one, maybe double that, or potentially look at, we do have everything within our community is subdivided into previous subdivisions. I mean, perhaps that may be something we look at as well as a standard in which sections can have short-term rentals, or at least the limit on the number of. So, I mean, they're not necessarily one for one as far as the number of homes, but it's something that maybe that could be used as a standard. There's got to be something. I agree with you. And I would like to be a little bit more protective than some of the current standards that are out there. Because I think as far as what that's planning's intent, right? And I get that as far as, having it in these the hotel allowable districts.
So what if if we were to approve this today and it came back before us, we're not taking away rights of any properties that currently exist as a short-term rental. They get to stay in their current capacity, period, right?
So if the ordinance was passed as presented today, the folks that are operating short-term rentals, again, as Ren has confirmed, would be non-conforming. As long as the ownership does not change for the property, if they stay up to date on their certificate, license, inspections, all these standards that the ordinance presents, they're able to maintain that as a non-conforming use. But the moment that the owner changes or something changes, that's when that use would then not be permitted at that property.
Which is fine, right? It doesn't, who's to say the person who purchased the property next is like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with it too. There's no way to know that anyways. Most people aren't buying it saying this is what I'm going to do with it. Most of our short-term rental properties are not that, a vacant home that people just come to, right? There's a couple, but most of them are people who are going to be gone and make a few extra bucks while they go do something fun, right?
I mean, I think it varies. I couldn't confidently answer that in a way or another.
To do it independently is next to impossible, unless you're just doing, subletting, right, and doing it on your own. Otherwise, most folks are doing it through bookings, VRBO, Airbnb,
Oh, I know,
those
but-
that are established.
Yeah,
right?
but people still do that if it's their home and they
Yeah.
leave, right?
Oh, yeah.
If in certain areas, people do that, and they do it regularly when they know something's going on in a community, where they're like, okay, you're coming, a lot of people are coming to town, I'll rent my house that weekend, I'll make this many dollars, and I'll go on vacation with that when these people get out of my house.
If Oakland Hills ever gets their golf course back up to speed and gets a PGA championship, then you'd see a lot of listings for that, right? So,
Good old days, right?
yep. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question about the inspections. What's the criteria of that? What are they inspecting for?
So currently, our short-term rentals and regular rentals, there's exterior-only inspections. So the interior inspection would be to just ensure that the property is still to code on the inside, that there's fire extinguishers, safety-related items like that. There's been a complaint once that one of the conditions was not up to date, but I know that with the way Airbnb and VRBO operate is that they keep it very tight, close to what properties they're listing. And so I think it was just an added safeguard to ensure that the short-term rentals operating in Clawson are kept in a safe manner for the public.
But that's pretty ambiguous, right now. So it could be used as a weapon against the ones we're trying to get rid of, right? There's not, how do we ensure everyone's held to the same standard? And long-term rentals don't have any interior inspection. And so that's a completely different, there's way more. I have had neighbors, the house next to me has been rented, and I've had good and I've had bad neighbors there, right? So it's a whole double standard to, try to edge out the short-term rentals is what it's written for.
I don't see it as trying to edge out, but I do agree with you that it would be equally important to have the same type of an inspection for people who are renting their properties, almost more importantly, because you don't have someone, if you're renting one of these rental properties, you are commenting on the condition of the property. They are posting photos. They're letting you know that it's in good condition, because people don't want to stay in someplace that's not in good condition. But people who are taking on rentals in our community, long-term rentals, people are taking what they can get, and all landlords are not great. And if anything, we probably need to create inspections, interior inspections for that. And I personally think it's not fair to have it for one and not for the other, because it does seem like it's penalizing you for making $1.
I think it's wrong.
And you're making more dollars long-term rentals than you are these proposed short-term rentals.
I think it's wrong to say there's an inspection without any kind of qualifier. What are we inspecting for? Is it just up to code? And is it, like houses that are existing, like my house isn't up to code. It was built in 1957, right? So up to code of an existing house, or up to what code? So again, putting something in here that's undefined can only be used against someone. It's not going to be used
It's
to
a
help
slippery slope.
anyone.
And
It's a slippery slope.
I just want to add that in the ordinance presented today, there's nothing about the inspections. That was a recommendation by the planning commission, if this was approved, for the city council to add standards for inspections to the the general ordinance for that. And so that would be more fleshed out at the next step if we get that far.
Any other comments about this?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Mr. Najai, we had talked about short-term rental agreements in the ordinance, and you'd said that we shouldn't be too stringent for fear of inducing a lawsuit against us. Do you feel the current ordinance as drafted would withstand a legal test?
Obviously, I would stand ready to defend the ordinance as council presents it, but with respect to as it is presented today, I think reasonable minds can differ, and I think on the opposing side, there can certainly be an argument that by limiting the zoning to the extent that the planning commission has recommended that we limit it, they're basically zoning it out of existence as a use. So, again, I'll be ready to defend.
But we could always, if we were to agree to this zoning, we can add areas later on, should we determine that it's useful to add them. Because I do like what Councilmember Shepherd, I do like some of the areas that he discussed. If you're in a business area anyways, it makes sense to have that, right, downtown or the surrounding areas. But I think the Planning Commission was taking our words from previous conversations and saying, we want this highly defined, we want it limited because of the concerns that come along with it. And they did a great job giving us something. Council, how would we like to proceed?
I would agree that they are limiting it, and that's my concern with it, that they are definitely limiting the ability for short-term rentals to be part of the community. And I don't think that's what the intention should be. It should be how to govern, how to manage, how to fold them into the community and make them something because people want them. People are doing it already. So I think the ordinance should be written in that spirit. So again, I would vote no.
Well, agreed, it does limit the access, of course, in my opinion. Short-term rentals are hotels, plain and simple. We have a lot of long-term residents in the city, and when they bought their homes, they had every expectation to be living in a residential area. And to suddenly be told, oh, guess what, there can be a hotel pop up next to you, I think it's a little disconcerting. And some people have said, well, that's just a few, no concern there, most of them are wonderful, they're just a few bad apples, and that's true. It's like the old saying, everything's fine until it's not. Or maybe everything's fine until one of those bad apples moves next to you. That would kind of change your attitude entirely. So my attitude is the more restrictive, the better. But if Councilman Shepherd, who has more experience in this matter than I do, feels that we could expand it a little better, I wouldn't be against that. But as far as a wholesale allowance of short-term rentals, no, I don't support it.
Hotels, you can rent a hotel for a month. You could rent a hotel for a year. How is that different than someone renting their house out for a year? I mean, if you're going to say it's transient people, long-term rentals are transient as well. So that's it's an unfair standard.
It's a different kind of transient. Long-term rentals tend to be month upon month.
How many people have rented their house out and had someone trash it? The kids that live next door to me right now, who are leaving at the end of the month, they've been great, but they never pick up their dog poop in the backyard, and that's annoying. But they're renters. You know, it's something you live with neighbors. They're going to be gone at the end of the month. So I think it's unfair to say people moved in not thinking that there's going to be, transient people next to them. It's also sold, the house is also sold multiple times. There's no guarantees when you live in a community what your neighbors are going to be. So I don't feel that's a fair argument that people moved in not thinking that there's going to be transient people next to them, because there always is.
Well, in the long term, we're all transient because we're all going to die. But my point is there's some line has to be drawn in the sand. I think month to month at least is relatively stable, whereas week to week is not.
That's why I didn't buy next to a cemetery I looked at, but.
Excellent neighbors.
I agree with you, though, Councilwoman Anderson. I do agree with you. It is that whole unknown of what's coming in 2 to 5 days or 7 days. I mean, it is something that we should consider, because again, it's all great until it's not great. And the only person benefiting are the people visiting and the person collecting the check. And the people who live around should not be penalized because someone else is collecting a check. My words. But we can go for a vote on this order.
Well, Madam Mayor, if I may, so just going back to the number currently is 10, is that right?
It's 12, and the recommended
12.
cap was 10.
12. And the cap is 10. I don't like the cap. I think we can do it, not necessarily, I would rather have it be by distance from, and that would, there would be a sliding scale as far as where these move around, rather than, okay, you're here now, those are the 10, and it'll always be those 10. I don't like that. So I'd like to have something different that it helps protect residents from having too many, having concentration in one or two different districts. And, again, as far as, you're right, the inspection is a part of this. And I'd also like to, so that's not actually a moot point, but it's something to consider maybe later on. I don't like it. Because I think it's too much of an infringement on freedom, and I don't like that. So that I would also like to incorporate some of the other districts I mentioned. So, if that's something that they can take back and kick around, or we can do it, I'd like to see that happen.
I think the way to send it back is to vote no and have it
Or we can
returned to
get,
the
we
commission.
can get this rewritten as it is, right?
So the zoning enabling act says that you must send back if there's substantive procedural,
those are
substantive changes which you're contemplating. That said, obviously, this conversation has gone on, I think, for some time, which means it has come before you on prior occasion. You could also, if you voted down, you can technically, you could schedule a public hearing at some point. But I would imagine that the best way to handle it would be to set it back with this conversation, have Joe Tangari draft it as such for the benefit of the planning commission, have them vote on it, bring it back, and at that point in time, then you can trigger a public hearing if you deem it appropriate.
Yeah, I was concerned as like, how much can we, get our hands in the kitchen and start
Absolutely.
making something else,
Absolutely.
right?
I think once you send it back with these, with that sort of general notion of an agreement between a majority, if that's the way that it goes, I think you could definitely have that conversation in a public hearing.
Nick, you were trying to say something earlier?
I was just basically going to recap the same thing. It seems like there's been a significant productive conversation about the topic and about the district and where the council kind of wants to see this go. I think we've got enough information from you to bring it to the planning commission, have them come up with some standards based on the items that we've discussed and present it back to you, and hopefully that everyone will be happy.
Okay, then let's call for the vote, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
No,
Councilmember Shepherd.
No.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Benkowski.
No.
Okay, thank you. After all of that conversation, we are going to do the planning commission a great service and ask them to bring this back to us one more time, utilizing some of the conversation that we had today that will hopefully improve this. And so we will look forward to seeing this back on an agenda sometime in the near future. Thank you for that good, hearty talk. Moving on to item 9B, we have consideration of approving the interlocal agreement and local match for the Access to Transit Program through Oakland County for the North Main Street Corridor Safety Improvement Project.
Support. All right, thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
In November 2024, the city applied for a grant through the Access to Transit Program through Oakland County for a Main Street Road Diet Design Project for conceptual design titled North Main Street Corridor Safety Improvement Project. This will allow us to review North Main Street from 14 Mile to Elmwood and propose potential road design reconfigurations. This program also will help fund public engagement efforts to receive more input from the community. Both the City Master Plan Update and Downtown Master Plan discuss exploring redesign efforts that would reconfigure North Main to one travel lane in each direction with additional on-street parking, which would potentially add 50 to 80 on-street parking spaces. This would be a continuation of the traffic calming that occurred on South Main Street between 2008 and 2019. The grant through Oakland County is for $20,000 with a local match of $5,000. The recommended cost sharing would be for the city to pay $4,000 of match from general ledger number 101-428-801, which is the professional services from the Community and Economic Development Fund, and the DDA to pay $1,000 from GL 248-248-801, professional services from the DDA. for the local match totaling $5,000. This has been discussed previously with the DDA and will be presented to them during their May 21st meeting, which is tomorrow. The city intends to utilize our planning consultant, Giffords Webster, to assist in the execution of this project. There are 3 major components to the project, consisting of public outreach, a traffic walking audit, and conceptual design and renderings. This phase will allow us to gather information to explore the future viability of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I have a question. So is the nature of the study to like see if it should be done, or is the nature of the study to validate that it is going to be done?
The nature of the study is to see if it's a viable spot for it. And so, I sit right next to Main Street. I am very cognizant of the traffic that goes by there. With the K through 12 folks now having all the students there, there's a lot more walkability going on around where the city hall is in the library. So we feel that it's necessary, but in order to do that, we want to make sure we're presenting information to the public and get feedback from the residents in the area, businesses. And so we don't just want to roll out a pilot program. We want to get feedback from the community before we make any investment or change to North Main Street.
And I apologize if it was in the information you sent, but how will they be getting feedback from the community? What are they going to do?
So we haven't totally nailed that down, but I think it'll probably consist of public surveys. We'll have open town halls. We may come up with some type of committee that will be made up of residents, businesses in the area, stakeholders that are in and around North Main Street on a consistent basis. They can see kind of the traffic flow of vehicles and foot traffic as well.
Okay.
And again, this is just to simply study it. There's not going to be a change overnight or anything like that. There's going to be significant outreach to the community before anything major changes.
Gotcha.
So this is strictly for Elmwood to 14 Mile?
Correct.
Okay.
Because we have done with Giffords Webster as part of the master plan, kind of like a very, very light conceptual design of what it could look like, just to give us an idea of how many parking spots we could potentially add, which I think is another benefit to it with our limited parking downtown. So that's the way it's presented.
Okay. But I guess my point is that, does it cross over 14 to look at the intersection that's approaching 14 Mile, that's south of Main Street, and the corridors that lead into that section, or is it strictly just?
So this is strictly for North Main Street from 14 Mile to Elmwood. With South Main Street already having the road design, it's not something we were necessarily interested in.
Okay.
I can share that coming up is a road safety audit with a very similar grant through SEMCOG to study 14 Mile, and that's the entirety of 14 Mile from Crooks to Rochester Road. And now that's more dedicated towards road safety and not necessarily specifically to a road diet on Main Street.
Okay. So not to too far off, because I want to talk about that too. But I guess my point is that, is it going to consider any of the outflow or inflow traffic on those streets that feed into that section of Main Street?
That is exactly what the audit will do,
Okay.
the traffic and walking audit.
Okay. Because right now, PNC will get developed, and what street is that? That's Lincoln, right? That's going to also be impacted. Is that going to be considered as?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything will be considered, yeah.
Okay.
And again, with the anticipation of more future development, et cetera, so those will all be considered.
Okay. And then going back to what you're talking about for the 14 Mile, again, not to get too far off, is that we were looking at potentially reconfiguration of parking on 14 Mile.
So I don't want to jump the gun on that one because that's probably much larger of a project. It's more or less just to review the safety of 14 Mile. I know we had the pedestrian crosswalks installed on 14 Mile near downtown. Yeah. And so it'll look at traffic flow, accident counts, and see if there's a potential for a additional crossing farther west on 14 Mile. But again, I believe we'll be presenting that one to the city council on June 3rd.
Okay.
If not the following meeting.
So I'll wait patiently for that.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. Thank you. We've just approved the interlocal agreement with Oakland County for the Access to Transit program. And we will execute the agreements and get going on that and see what it says. It's kind of interesting, exciting. It'd be nice to solve some traffic problems in that area eventually, right? Item 9C is our next agenda item, and that is consideration of the Southeastern Oakland County Public Works Association, Public Works Mutual Aid Authority Agreement.
Madam Mayor, I move the Southeastern Oakland County Public Works Association Public Works Mutual Aid Authority Agreement be approved, and to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement.
Support.
Nick, another one.
Thank you. The Southeastern Oakland County Public Works Association Public Works Mutual Aid Authority Agreement was adopted in 1986 and has been operating under the original agreement since then. There are 19 communities as well as Sacra and Sakwa in the Southeast Oakland County that participate in the association. The mutual aid agreement provides the operating standards for how mutual aid is offered and received for the participating entities. Staff and the city attorney have reviewed the agreement and are satisfied with the language and recommend approval of the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
So, sorry, but yes. First of all, there's two acronyms here. SACRA is,
The recycling authority that the city's part of,
and SACWA is?
the water authority the city's part of.
And what kind of mutual aid? Is this like water main breaks or what?
Yeah, so apologies for the lack of clarity on the acronyms. Frequently what we see is there's a big storm that comes in. Obviously, we're all next to each other, but there's times where the storm may not hit Clawson as much as it hits maybe Farmington Hills. If we're not using some of our equipment and their equipment breaks down, we'll loan that to them. That's basically the frequency of it. When I spoke to the DPW Superintendent Travis Zablocki, I believe there's been 2 times in the last 4 or 5 years that we've had to take part in this. And so it's an infrequent thing, but if there is some type of, I'd say disaster, but that's kind of what you think of, it's helpful to be able to receive and offer the mutual aid if it doesn't hit one of our neighboring communities as bad as it hits us or vice versa.
So is this saying that we're going, I guess this is a question for Rennes, is this saying we're going to do it or we're indemnifying liability for doing it, or why are we doing this?
Well, it's a joint agreement, obviously, between all the municipalities that are involved, and we're doing it because we're receiving help on occasion, perhaps, and giving out aid on occasion, perhaps. And in those occasions, when it does occur, whenever it occurs, and there is an issue, that agreement basically guides us as far as our liability and what liability others have to us.
So it covers all that liability, and we're going to do it. And so when something happens, we don't have to hammer all that stuff out. It's already in it.
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. All right.
And it is based on availability. If someone needs our support, we're not going to drop what we're doing here if we're in the middle of something. So it's if you can offer the service.
Gotcha.
Precisely.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Thank you. We have just agreed to enter into the Southeastern Oakland County Public Works Association Public Works Mutual Aid Agreement moving forward. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 9D, we have consideration of placing the delinquent city billings on the summer 2025 tax roll.
So move.
Support.
Nick?
Thank you. Every 6 months before the taxes are sent out to residents and business owners, the city's able to place the delinquent bills on their respective tax roll. Examples of potential delinquent billings each year consist of rubbish collection, cleanup costs, vacant home inspections, and water bills. This delinquent billing rollover consists of unpaid water, rental application fees, and fire inspection fees that are 180 days past due to the city of Clawson. Once approved by council, the list of delinquent bills will be transferred as assessments to the 2025 summer tax statements for the properties listed. This year, we are requesting that the following totals, which include the 10% penalty, be transferred onto the summer 2025 tax roll. Delinquent water assessments in the amount of $196,191.15. Delinquent fire inspections in the amount of $6,759.50. Delinquent rental application fees in the amount of $2,640. with the total delinquent billings in the amount of $205,590.65. And then for reference, the summer 2024 delinquent tax roll included $178,910.38 in delinquent billings that were rolled into taxes.
Thank you. What area increased? Do you know? Just
So
curious.
last year, the only item that was rolled into taxes were water assessments.
Oh, that's right, we changed. Yeah.
Was there always a 10% penalty, or is that new?
I believe there's always a 10%
Was there?
penalty.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd. Yes.
You've just agreed to place the delinquent city billings on the summer 2025 tax roll. Moving on to item 9E, we have consideration of the social district permit application for Ben and Lacey Services LLC, commonly known as French Toast Bistro, 230 to 236 South Main Street, in accordance with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission.
So moved.
Support.
Nick?
All right, thank you. Ben and Lacey Services LLC, doing business as French Toast Bistro, has received their conditional license for transfer ownership 2025 Class C, issued under MCL 436-1521A1B, Downtown Development Authority license. They would like to make application to the Michigan Liquor Control Commission for a social district permit, which will be issued with the permanent Class C liquor license. In order to make the application, the MLCC requires a resolution in support from the City Council. The resolution form is attached. Additionally, in July of 2021, the City of Clawson established a social district in the heart of downtown to support businesses and promote a lively downtown. All restaurants that are located within the boundaries of the social district and have a liquor license are allowed to apply and participate in the social district. The social district runs along East 14 Mile from points west of Pear, the north side of West 14 Mile, east of Washington, and along South Main Street from points north of Tacoma. The applicant's place of business operates within the boundaries of the social district.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Roll call, please, Michelle.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Just agreed to provide a social district permit for Ben and Lacey Services, also known as French Toast. Get out there and try them. I hear they're spectacular. Next up, we have item 9F, which is consideration of reappointment of Timothy Brennan to the Blair Memorial Library Board, term to expire June 30th, 2030.
I move the reappointment of Timothy Brennan to the Blair Memorial Library Board, term to expire June 30th, 2030, be approved.
Support.
Any comments, questions? Councilmember Binkowski?
The city adopted this council actually adopted some requirements on boards and commissions. One of those is that the boards should reflect the city's gender, age, and cultural demographic. And unfortunately, the library board just does not reflect the city's age demographic. I would respectfully suggest that we take efforts to put some younger families on the board, some younger folks, maybe with some kids in the area. So I will be voting against Mr. Brennan's reappointment.
That is your right to do so, but I will share that Mr. Brennan has served on the board for quite a long time, and the board chair, Ms. Eva Joyce Burns, put a comment on his application that something to the effect of he's an exceptional board member, and he's a longtime volunteer for Clawson, and I personally say thank you, Mr. Brennan, for your willingness to serve again. Does anyone else have any other comments?
I'll point out one more thing. When you replaced Bill Kelly off the DDA, he was also recommended by the entire DDA, yet you thought, I've got a better idea. So just to let you know, you in the past have no qualms with not doing a reappointment just because someone's been around for a while and they've been a longtime volunteer.
Thank you for your opinion on that, and I will be happy to talk with you or anyone else about that topic or any other if you'd like to do that after this meeting. I personally don't like to make sport out of publicly shaming people who are willing to serve, but that's done by someone else here, so, but let's have a roll call, please, Michelle.
Mayor Milan,
Yes, wholeheartedly yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski.
No.
Well, Mr. Tim Brennan, we are so thankful that you're willing to serve on our Blair Memorial Library Board. We appreciate your many years of service, and we hope that you will be willing to do it for many more. Item number 9G is consideration of reappointment of Alexander April to the Parks and Recreation Board for a term to expire May 1st, 2027.
Madam Mayor, I move the reappointment of Alexander April to the Parks and Recreation Board, term to expire May 1st, 2027, be approved.
Support.
Any comments or questions or concerns? We shall have a roll call vote. Michelle?
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Binkowski,
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. Thank you, Alexander April, for your willingness to serve. I think this is his first reappointment, so that time flew. Thank you for your willingness, and hopefully you'll want to serve for a long time, too. Next up, we have unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business? Good answer. We'll move to item number 11, which is public comments for items not on the agenda. If you would like to speak to items not on the agenda, we welcome you to the podium. We will ask you to state your name and address. We will give you 3 minutes. Again, like we stated earlier, it is a time for you to provide comments. We will not be providing answers, but feel free to hang out after the meeting and approach any one of us if you have concerns that need to be met, and we'll be happy to address those. So if you have comments, we welcome you to the podium.
Hi, Jamie Gills, Takanochi. I just wanted to comment on asking for the address. It still sounds like it's mandatory, and I believe at another meeting, we actually decided that mandatory, or you talked about mandatory being illegal when we come up here. So it would be great if you guys could change the wording so that people don't think they have to if they want to speak. I think that's really important, that we make that clear. Yeah, that's all I've got tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Madam Mayor, members of council, city staff, I felt compelled
Excuse
to,
me,
good
could you
evening.
please state your name and address, please?
I was in my
It's in your,
remarks.
I didn't know if it was in there, so I haven't
is.
seen it, so your minutes are not going. So sorry, I just need to make sure, because otherwise someone's going to say, no name, no address, hello.
Is it required that you have to state it first, as long as you include it in your comments? I was going to state it.
Again, I had.
My
no way
name
to
is
know.
David Zeus. I live on Oakley. I've been a resident in Clawson for 25 years. Greatly appreciate and enjoy living in this community. I felt compelled to offer some comments this evening because of several incidents that have taken place over the past several months. Both the special election on May 6th and the actions by some of you during recent council meetings indicate that each of you should pause, reflect, and consider 2 important things. The first thing is respect. Conducting a special election on May 6th with the singular purpose of keeping the size of this council the same was both disrespectful and irresponsible. It disrespected the citizens who invested considerable time and worked very hard to review and revise the charter. And it disrespected your constituents who voted on and approved the revised charter in 2023. While some council members and others in the community may have concerns about expanding the size of council, no compelling information was provided to residents about why a special election costing taxpayers $25,000 was necessary. That is being irresponsible with our tax dollars. In addition, some of you show a lack of respect during council meetings, bickering, snide remarks, opening a council meeting by talking about perceived intimidation from another member, and the open defiance of the city manager to not consider a council member's request for an analysis on an issue are some examples. Such personal drama is not productive or civil and is not respectful of our community. I ask that each of you commit to being more respectful to each other and to your community. The second thing I ask is that each of you be more humble. You were successful in competing for your elected position or job, enabling you to sit where you are now. Congratulations. But you should no longer be competing. You should be
Time.
cooperating.
I'm so sorry, but we're trying to stick to the time. Your 3 minutes is up, but you're welcome to come back with the rest of your time later.
I timed this to not be interrupted.
We don't take comments from the audience. Thank you very much. Point of order. Anyone else who'd like to speak for public comment? Items not on the agenda. Okay, then we'll close public comment and move on to city clerk's report. Michelle, do you have a report for us this evening?
The only thing I have tonight is that Oakland County Elections they have completed their May 6th canvass, and we're waiting for the canvass certification at this time. And also, the Michigan Bureau of Elections conducts state post-election audits. The city of Clawson was selected for one of those audits for Precinct 1. It's a random selected, they randomly select from the communities that had elections for this post-election procedure audit, which was completed today by Oakland County Elections, and everything was found in order. That's all I have today.
Good job, thank you. Mr. Newside, do you have a city attorney report for us this evening?
Yes, ma'am. Just very briefly, I'd like to indicate, as you know, the Ordinance Review Committee met today. It was a very productive meeting, and we're currently working on the liquor ordinance, which has been in need of some revisions for some time, and additional work will be required. That you should see, all of council should see that in upcoming meetings. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Moving on to city manager's report. Nick, do you have, you did a great job you did a great job tonight, Nick. You had a lot of conversation with us. Good job. Do you have a report for us as well?
Thank you. I try my best. Just a few items to comment on. This past weekend, the DDA successfully hosted 2 events downtown despite windy conditions. The Spring Open Air Fair featured over 25 crafters and artisans at all 4 corners of the downtown area, drawing a steady crowd. In addition, the inaugural farmers market took place on Saturday in the southeast parking lot with 15 vendors participating. We extend our sincere thanks to the volunteers who contributed their time and energy to make both events a success. Looking ahead, our next farmers market is scheduled for Saturday, May 31st, and we anticipate welcoming over 25 vendors to the event. So please mark your calendars. City Hall will be closed Monday, May 26th in observance of Memorial Day. We will be having a Memorial Day Remembrance ceremony at the Memorial Park located next to the library starting at 10 a.m. We have a CCTV update. Rogue Industrial continues moving forward with the CCTV program. They have completed over 40% of the city at large and are currently working in sections 8 and 9, which make up the area between North Main Street and Rochester, from side roads Allen Avenue and Walper north to Fisher Court. Once those 2 sections are complete, they'll move on to section 7. Section 7 is located between North Main and Rochester Road from Roth to Elmwood. And finally, staff attended the May 13th Library Board meeting to continue the dialogue around the proposal of additional funds to support another day being open at the library. During the meeting, the board voted to maintain the current hours of operation for several reasons. Before we dive into that, for your awareness, the current hours of operation consist of being open 5 days a week under a seasonal schedule. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, the library is open Monday through Friday, with Monday and Wednesday being open from noon to 8 p.m., Tuesday and Thursday open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Friday from 9 to 5. The hours from Labor Day to Memorial Day are the same, with the exception of the library being open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday instead of Friday. Additionally, the library currently has 2 full-time staff and 8 part-time staff. If an additional day was added to the schedule, the library would need to hire a minimum of 1 to 2 more part-time staff to support their operations. The minimum staffing at the library at a given time is 1 of the full-time staff and 3 part-time staff. The budgeted revenues for the library fund are $654,300, and the budgeted expenditures are $698,860 for the upcoming fiscal year. The library is using $44,560 from their fund balance to maintain the current services. There is some concern among the board that if this goes into effect, if this would be a perpetual transfer of funds from the city general operating funds to continue the operations with the additional day. There are also concerns among public libraries across the nation regarding future federal funding. The president issued an executive order earlier this year to eliminate the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the IMLS, which is the primary federal agency supporting libraries and museums. The executive order resulted in a suspension of federal grants and other funding mechanisms. This month, a federal judge did issue a preliminary injunction temporarily halting the order to allow the IMLS to resume some operations, but there is still some great uncertainty about how this will unfold. The library has extremely dedicated staff and volunteers and always meet the needs of their patrons. If there is strong support to explore the additional day being open, I believe the conversation should revolve more around the public engagement and feedback on the current operating hours versus another day or a flex schedule of the existing hours. After some conversation with the board and library staff, my observation is that support for increased programming and services may be desirable within the current schedule. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions?
How's the trees going?
We are finalizing the locations, and I believe we're hoping to have them planted within the next few weeks, depending on when we can get the trees in.
Okay, so we had, the list was 51. And was there feedback from Wagons as far as what they still had in inventory for what was proposed?
At this time, we have not.
Okay. Okay. But you're looking at the sites to make sure that they're appropriate for the...
Correct.
Okay.
Nick, how about the status of the brick pavers downtown? Because I noticed on Saturday that they are there working, and those bricks did come in handy for some people to try and hold down their tents over the weekend, but curious how they're doing on that project.
The project is still underway. I don't have an exact percentage complete like we do for the CCTV, but I know that they've had their teams out there working diligently over the last week and a half, and are hoping to get done as soon as possible.
Great, thank you. Council comments. Councilmember Binkowski?
Nothing for me.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I just, again, want to thank everyone. I know it's difficult. Some people are not 100% comfortable coming up and speaking, so please always feel free to email us your thoughts. Keep engaged. An engaged community is very, very important. So just thank you, everyone, for coming. And if you didn't get a chance to finish your thoughts, please email us what you were going to say.
Councilmember Anderson?
No comment.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Just a couple of things. I want to thank the Planning Commission again for their efforts. A lot of times these are hard decisions and very difficult and elaborate items that you have to take up. And I know it's a strictly volunteer, and I really appreciate the efforts that you guys go through. And I know it must be frustrating to have it come up here and we just throw it back in your face. That's not the intent, right? But I appreciate what you guys do. The other side is just, going back, and I really hope that we get those trees get in as soon as possible. This is part of our overall strategy of improving our green infrastructure. And I think that'd be something that a lot of people look forward to. And it's important. So just want to make sure that that's impressed upon everybody, I should say. That's it.
Thank you. Nick mentioned the activities that took place downtown over the weekend, the summer market kickoff and also the outdoor air fair. And I would be remiss to not thank Kristen Urbanik from the city manager's office, who's serving as the liaison for the DDA, for really doing a spectacular job getting people together and organizing that event. It was so blustery. Nick, you would not believe how nimble Nick is. Nick, we would be in a conversation, and next thing you know, Nick was way over there jumping and holding down tents that were trying to fly away. But it was a really successful day, and having spoken to many of the vendors, they had good days too, had a good day too, which is a really good thing to know. So that was just the beginning of something that's going to be even better. I'd like to remind people that Deluminaire Farms will be at the park on Sundays in their old tradition. So if you've grown accustomed to picking up some good locally grown produce and jams and such, make sure you go there. They will appreciate your support. I also would like to remind you that Hunter Community Center and our library have activities for people of all ages. They have a lot of programming coming up for the upcoming warmer weather, so go check out their websites and see if there's something there that would interest you. We also have the 4th of July activities coming up. Please hit their website up, sign up for the kids' activities, the fun runs, the various things they have. And then also, if you're available, they can always use volunteers. And personal, I'd like to say thank you to the DPW, because as I was coming home from a dinner the other night, we were driving down one of our nicely newly paved streets to see brown water everywhere with sand. And of course, people were out because they were home and noticed it far before we did. But our DPW was out and on it and spent their hours late Saturday night helping out residents so that we could have our comforts of home. So thanks to the DPW. Their job is not always easy or on a good time schedule, probably, that they pick, so we do appreciate them. And just to remind everyone, as Nick said, we do have an activity on Memorial Day, 10 a.m. As many people can come. We have Cub Scouts, we have people who've served that will be honored, and it's just one of the nicest events we do to draw together and to remember why our country is so special, and for people who served and gave the ultimate sacrifice. So other than that, have a wonderful, safe holiday season. Sorry it's not going to be warm from what I hear, but a day off is a good thing, right? So enjoy that, and thank you everyone for your service tonight. And I will call for a motion to dismiss.
I move we adjourn.
Support?
Michelle?
Councilor Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Councilor Vinkowski?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Moffett?
Yes.
Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Nice. Been an hour.